originally, I think it happened when I was going to undergraduate school at Cornell. And I was, interestingly enough, majored in animal husbandry, which came in quite useful in the last few years because I co-authored a book about artificial insemination, and the high-tech pregnancy. And my experiences at Cornell came back to me because I had sort of a minor in artificial insemination there. It actually begun, with animal insemination. So it brought back those memories. But anyhow, I got interested in rural sociology and worked in rural communities during the summers, did some field work out of Cornell in the rural communities, and I learned an awful lot. I realized how well organized some of the rural communities were as far as their social services. People didn't realize that. They thought, out in the rural areas you got nothing, but they're much better organized than, at least at that time, than we were in our urban communities. So I got interested in social work. I took classes at Cornell, and there were several teachers there who sort of encouraged me.
This was in your undergraduate?
Undergraduate. So when I graduated from Cornell, I had, at Cornell actually, I became involved in, actually founded a social work club there, and did some field work again after I graduated, and then applied to Columbia in art social school. That's really how I got interested in it.
So you went to Columbia?
Yeah.
Got your master's there.
Right.
Where'd you go from there?
I went to Pennsylvania at Lehigh Valley Guidance Clinic, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I worked there for nearly 3 years. And I did that purposefully because I wanted that kind of experience. And I found it very interesting. The experience was very good. It was a community-wide clinic that served the whole Lehigh Valley and had a real nice range of experiences working with psychiatrists and diagnostic work and just serving the community. It was a good follow-up to what I've been doing in the rural community. So from there,
how long did you stay there?
About 3 years. And then 1953, I came to California and went to work at Vista Del Mar Child Care, multiple child care agency, and I stayed there for 33 years. And I found the experience very rewarding. Why I stayed so long. I had many opportunities to do some innovative work, which was somewhat difficult to find in traditional agencies, particularly on the East Coast. So I was really pleasantly surprised to find that on the West Coast, things are much looser and more flexible, and social workers are encouraged to be more experimental, try new ideas. So I had opportunity to...
And this was true when you started with
Vista. Right. First of all, they were very happy to have me there with the experience I brought with me, and particularly the research experience I had, and the fact that I was interested in that aspect of social work. So I've been there about 3 years, and I began to become very interested in the foster home program and the pregnancy counseling program, which was a part of the adoption program. And then I began to publish papers on some of the things I was working on, particularly work with fathers, young fathers, teenage fathers. That's what got me started in adoption theory. And then I was approached by HEW, Health, Education, and Welfare, Children's Bureau at that time, to do a research project on teen pregnancy. And that really got me going, doing more research and encouraged me to stay, at Vista, because I had this opportunity to do things that I was really interested in and wanted to do. The research project at that time was a very good one. It's interesting that that was in the early 60s, late 50s, 60s. And at that time, what was interesting about it was that Health Education and Welfare had decided that they could do something about teen pregnancy. So they formed a task force. And they said, the child welfare problems are enormous, but we're going to take one piece, one area, and we're going to see if by concentrating on it, we can do something to reduce the rate of teen pregnancy. So they actually came and asked if I would submit a proposal for a grant. Which was kind of interesting. In other words, they say, we want this grant, this project done. And it was to focus on teen fathers, young teen fathers. So I had almost a 4-year grant. It was a very good grant at that time. The grant was about $150,000, which was worth a lot then, and enabled us to do a really very fine research project on teen pregnancy, emphasizing fathers. The reason I mention that is that now, in 1993, the issue is again surfacing with the Clinton administration. And I saw this in today's papers, as a matter of fact, but I was kind of following it. They're going to assemble a task force again to tackle the problem of teen pregnancies. And they've decided that this is an issue that they can do something about. It's gotten out of hand, and they feel they have the tools to do it with. So here it is again. So it's
going to offer your services?
Well, I'm thinking I may, but I think they have the tools to work with, and they know, where and how to approach it. So it'll be interesting whether they can really do it. I hope that they can. And this administration maybe can do it with a lot of hope, a lot of help and hope from the social work community.
You have a feeling that the Clinton administration has a good feeling about the social work field?
Yes, I do. They are much more involved, much more open and receptive to calling upon a social work community. And there are many social workers who are helping the Clinton administration when they're closer to an ASW. And I think they will use the knowledge, expertise, and the people in the field who can really spearhead something like this. But the structures there, there's good social agencies around the country that I think need to be revitalized to take on this job. So I hope it will be done, because it is a horrendous problem. It's a problem that perpetuates itself. Peace. It brings a lot of pain and suffering, people. So it can be done. Interesting, teen pregnancy. We did make a lot of headway in reducing teen pregnancy among the middle class and the better educated. For example, among college students, teen pregnancy just disappeared practically. One time it was a problem there.
How do you explain it?
Well, I think the approach, educational approach, I think really was the approach that helped the most. And along with the educational approach came, encouraging students to move ahead into career positions for themselves. The 60s with the sexual revolution also helped, because it allowed more information to be disseminated on college campuses. Teachers and students were more receptive to it. Human sexuality classes began to blossom on college campuses, and they still do. I think on the community colleges campuses for example, and on all the campuses now. There are many classes that students can take. So it was effective. It showed that education can be a very effective tool. The results of the fact are that whereas college pregnancies among students is something like 10 to 12%, it went to almost zero. So that approach can become effective too, be done early and continues. And of course there are other social, economic problems that have to be addressed, but it can be done. And I think I'm very pleased that this administration wants to do it. It's going to target it.
We go back to your experience at Christy Del Mar,
Yeah.
the kinds of things you get satisfaction from,
Okay.
and problems that you ran up into.
Okay. Well, following this project on fathers, which resulted, also be interesting that this is a cooperative effort too. Recently, at that time the Bureau of wasn't the Bureau of Jewish Education, but there was a department. Fred Masserick was in charge of that department, the research department.
It was the research department of Jewish Federation Council.
Right. And we worked with them. They assigned two people, a researcher and I think Fred was director of that department, to work with us on this, which allowed us to develop some rather new sophisticated tools. So, we published a book that was widely distributed among agencies, particularly child welfare agencies, and lots of articles. We published maybe 28, I think, articles in nearly all the journals on procedures for working with teen fathers, working with teenage pregnancy problems. And it became very, very useful. And then, of course, shortly after our project came out, the Supreme Court made a ruling on fathers that said that they have to have their day in court, which changed the whole practice. And that agencies had to, whether they wanted to or not, they were now mandated by law to include them in the services they offer. And even today, you will read about cases going on that deal with the rights of fathers. Court that refer back to that Supreme Court decision. And in that decision, I filed a brief because I had been so involved in the research that was very much a part of the final decision. Stanley versus Illinois. That is the decision that's still in force. There's some modifications, but it's still the primary force that moves us whole thing forward. What I learned from that then was that a legal decision can do more to move practice ahead than all the articles I had written. For instance, I was very popular. I would be on the circuit constantly. I traveled around the country many times to do workshops and whatnot. Everybody was interested in it. But I didn't see a heck of a lot of progress going on until the Supreme Court ruling. They turned it around within 1 year. So, now from that, I became interested in the whole issue of adoption and foster care. And I also had experiences in the residential program. One of the things I liked about working at an agency like this, in community services, was that I had an opportunity to work in all the various departments. Like at one point, I was in charge of one of the residential units. And there I got some very, very valuable data because I discovered there that many of the kids were adopted children, and we didn't even know that. Back then, in intake, this was in the 60s, we didn't bother to find out whether a child that came in was adopted. There was very very little research done on adoption. That's a very important point. In every other field in child welfare, there's volumes. But somehow we assume that adoption was kind of just a simple process. After all, you got together a birth family and a birth mother, usually teenagers, who needed to place a child, and you got families who were dying to get a child. And what else? I mean, you wish them well, and that was it. Never bothering to expose it to the kind of research that other fields of child welfare were exposed to. So when I discovered there were so many kids in the residential program adopted, I began to take note of that. And I was also supervising the intake department at that time. So I said, okay, we're going to track this. And we found that every third child coming into placement was adopted. Now, I correlated that with the fact that we had oversimplified adoption and romanticized it and had failed to give it the kind of intensive study and examination and research that we did in every other field. And as a result, we did a terrible disservice. And I saw it at a distance. So I began to concentrate on that. And I had access to networking around the country, and I discovered that this was not just a phenomenon of Vista. This was true all over the country, in the residential programs, in the correctional facilities, in the child guidance clinics, that the percentage of adopted kids was very high, 20 to 30%. In the correctional facilities, I remember surveying them, and some areas they tell me, my God, it seems to us like half the kids are adopted. Well, anyway, as a result of that, I began doing research on adoption. And the other interesting thing that served me well was that I always kept an involvement in practice. I felt that was very important. And I learned this from two of the teachers at USC. One was John Milner, who was very interested in foster care, and June Brown. And as a result, I would go back to school periodically to do a lecture on adoption. And from June, I learned something very important, which I began to realize just in the last few years, actually, that adoption really belongs in child welfare, and it belongs in social agencies. Adoption is too important to let it remain with lawyers and baby brokers. He kept telling me that every time I go there and do a lecture, I would say, Reuben, when are you going to learn that this belongs in child welfare? So, anyhow, so I got into the research in adoption. That research project lasted 5-year project. It's a very, very important study. So what we did was we went back and looked at what do these problems mean? Where do they come from? What can we do about them? But primarily was to identify them. And this project was done jointly with a research psychiatrist from UCLA, Dr. Arthur Solowski, and a colleague who had also been a system at Barron. So the three of us worked on this. But we didn't do it alone. We had help from all over the country, from agencies, from people who were interested in what we were doing, from other organizations. And as a result, we had volumes of information that we gathered and people who were helpful. It was an interesting research project because it involved people who were not directly involved in it, but who helped us to do interviewing and so on. And as a result of that, we published a book called Adoption Triangle, which is, that book is still going very strongly. It has sold over 100,000 copies. And it is a classic in the adoption field. There have been a number of cases. The Dworak case that got some publicity in the past year. Well, there's constant references to the adoption triangle. All the writings have gone on around this case. I just reviewed one recently. And there was somebody who had a different point of view than we did. And said that the research in the classic book, The Adoption Triangle, influenced adoption practice tremendously in ways that this particular author didn't like. They were oversimplifying it, and he was saying you've got to look at what all this means. So anyhow, that became, I think, a very important project in the whole field of adoption. Because what we were saying basically was that we have overlooked the impact, for instance, on a birth mother who has to give up a child. That our focus in agencies, for example, originally was finding homes for children who needed homes, not just infants, but children of all ages. That was child welfare. And in adoption, it didn't take long for us to shift that focus to finding babies for infertile couples. And that was a totally different focus. Change that practice in many ways. It meant that our main concern was to find babies.
Not rather than to take care of children.
Right. We were not really child-oriented. We were really parent-oriented and primarily infertile couples. And that practice went on and on. And it didn't take long for our practice to become very rigid in adoption. For example, sealed records. It said this has to be anonymous and confidential, and that the birth mother who signs a relinquishment has to understand what that means. You have to take a look at it on this document. It says very clearly, you have given up all your rights and responsibilities forever. So, and the assumption was that the birth mother would forget it somehow, she'd put it behind her and not worry about it, think about it too much, and get on with her life. Our research showed that didn't happen. And it also showed that relinquishing a child is one of the most emotional and loaded things that any human being could ever do. So, then we began to look at the problems that the adopted children had as a result of the sealing of the records, the secrecy that surrounded it, the fact that the couples who were adopting children wanted to ignore the fact that these children had a whole history and a connection, a historical connection, and a genetic connection, and that you couldn't just cut it out. You couldn't pretend that these children didn't have another identity. So, we saw all the problems that resulted from that: dual identity confusion, adolescent adoptees acting out. We correlated that with what we were seeing in agencies around the country, and concluded that our practice had been skewed in the wrong direction. That when adoption to be successful, the child had to be able to incorporate an identity of both his birth parents and the birth family, not just the birth parent, and his adopted family. But you had to answer the child's questions. You had to know why he was given up for adoption. And you had to know who these people were. You had to know them as real people. And then that became the essence of what we call the adoption reform movement. And interestingly enough, and I think this is very interesting for the social work field, that the reform movement in adoption did not come from the social agencies. It came from the people who were, you could say, the victims of all the problems of adoption. They came from really people who would have been our clients, and they formed their own organization.
That's the birth parents.
Well, the birth parents formed their own. They had a national organization that they formed, chapters all over the country, and their organization is called Concerned United Birth Parents. Okay? national conferences. I'm a frequent speaker at their national conferences. This year I gave a keynote address at their conference in Colorado, national conference. There's an organization formed to push and fight for the rights of adoptees. Adoptees lost all of it. It's ironic to realize that they lost all their rights. Adoptees have no right to information about his background, no rights to identifying information. As an adoptee, until quite recently applied for a passport, you have to show his original adoption papers, which sometimes are hard to find. You know, the adoption decree, for instance, is just something people didn't hang on to. And adoptees are denied the rights of people who are not adopted parents. Those of us who are not adopted, we could get any information we wanted. We could find our roots. We could, find out as much as we wanted about our historical connections. Adoptees could not. So an organization was formed called ALMA, which is Adoptees Living Group, founded by a woman named Florence Fisher. That's the largest of all the reform movements. Chapters all over this country and in other countries. And they also operate a exchange where adoptees can register, birth parents can register. And there are several exchanges like that also were not formed through agency encouragement. And there are now about 3 or 4 national organizations that have chapters all over the country and that have groups, support groups, and so on, and who are fighting for the rights of adoptees, rights of birth parents, and the rights of adopted parents, believe it or not. So that was very interesting to me. What happened was that the reform movement picked up where the agencies failed to meet the needs of the community. And this could have been done. Agencies could have been the ones who push for the reform, but they didn't. Reform came from the outside. Now, interestingly enough, in the last 10 years, there's been a movement to bring them together. And agencies now invite people from the reform movement to come and meet with their staff and meet with their clients and so on. And now in adoption, what we're hoping is going to happen is that adoptions will move back to agency practice and move into the field of child welfare. And what happened in infant Brown, right, and that's June Brown, right, that was her idea. A very important decision. So what's happened, or to give you a little perspective on what's happened in the last 10 years, is that attorneys have gotten into the field of adoption. And if one wants to adopt an infant, for example, you can either go through a social agency or you can go through an attorney, which is called an independent adoption, as opposed to an agency adoption. So in an independent adoption, there are very few regulations. In fact, there's practically none. And naturally, it's going to attract people much more than going to an agency where a couple is going to have to talk about why they want to adopt, their understanding of adoption, their infertility problems, and it's a process that I think is very important in adoption.
And are they suitable?
Yeah, all of it, and a background check and so on. It's a responsibility that we have to the children who are going to be placed and to the birth parents who are going to place them. So in independent adoption, none of this takes place. And anyone can go. You can be 75 years old and adopt a child. You have the money to pay for it. Right? So that began to attract people away from agency practices, and as a result, in the 70s and 80s, many agencies just disappeared. So that was a big crisis in the sense of the agencies. Now, read began to look into what's going on in stuff. And what we found was pretty bad. We found that basically, to adopt a child independently, you had to have money, which removed it from the egalitarian approach. It meant that only people who could afford it could adopt, and that their methods of getting babies from was outrageous, because what they were doing was primarily advertising for babies. This has now continued to be the practice. This is the practice right now. So you, independent adoption, you'll see ads in personnel in the personnel column. You'll see them next to the Volvo ads, and the attorneys will instruct and train couples exactly how to run ads, how to entice people, in other words. And I see ads, I've got books of them. Caucasian, white, Christian couple, have everything to offer a child. We'll pay for all expenses. We'll give the child a wonderful home that birth mother may not be able to, and so on. And they run along that line. Also, what I have found, because I've been very, very involved in this issue, is that the advertising takes place in certain parts of the country, and primarily the Bible Belt. What you find there is prejudice, stigmatizing out-of-wedlock pregnancies, practically no sex education, and poverty. And I correlated the poverty in the country, and many of the major newspapers in the past few years have run lots of stories on poverty. USA Today had a beautiful map of the poverty belt in the country. Well, I correlated that with the Bible Belt, and then correlated with where babies come from. And I found that it's almost exactly. In the last few years, and I've been getting data, very excellent data, because I continue to work with adopted couples who have recently adopted children. I do most of the post-adoption work at this now as a consultant. And what I have found, which disturbs me a great deal, is that whereas not so long ago in adoption, if you ran across a married couple who were going to relinquish a child to adoption, when you ran across a couple who had children and were going to relinquish a child to adoption, it was very rare, very rare. And we'd call a big conference immediately and say, well, this can't be. This is a family we have to hold together. And we would. What I'm finding now, in the studies I've been doing, is that 40%, nearly 40% of couples of relinquishments today of infants come from the Bible Belt. They come from married couples who have 2 or 3 children, and they're poor. And this is primarily where babies are coming from today. They're not coming from the college campuses, not coming from the middle class, or the upper middle class, for sure. Okay, they're not coming from certain religious groups, for example. For instance, you practically see 0 Jewish babies. They just don't exist. You see babies from the fundamentalist groups coming poor and married with children now. Think of the ramifications of that. That because the family is poor and having to give up a child. So, the ramifications for the children who are kept, and the child is relinquished, and the family is getting the child, and the whole business. And this is what it's become. It's become a very lucrative business. So, we have finally arrived at something that we can all support in this view, and that is adoption should only be handled by social agencies, and that it belongs in child welfare. And this is where I learned from June Brown. Why does it belong in child welfare? Because our focus should be to keep families together. It should be family reunification. And to do that, you have to have a family approach. It has to be a child welfare approach, which is child welfare. So what I now believe is that adoption should be handled by children and family agencies only, where you can do all this, where you can help to keep a family together, and where adoption should be limited to only those cases where there absolutely is no other alternative. Because separating children from their families permanently, as we do in adoption, should be a very last resort. So now, in it, overriding all of this, became my interest also finding out what is the practice in other countries. And there I learned some very interesting things. I was invited to a number of international conferences on adoption, and I learned that the practice of feeling directly, of having an anonymous type of adoption, of using the kind of relinquishment procedures we use, is unique to this country. Only country in the world where this is practiced. In France, it's not practiced. In France, you adopt a child, it's the very last resort, and you do not alter the child's birth certificate, which we do here. When you alter a birth certificate, you're saying to the family, pretend this child was born to you. In France, they never thought that way either. The child, his birth certificate and his identity with his birth family goes with him. It's all real. It's there, and it works fine there. I had a very interesting experience with the social workers from Israel. I was invited to give a paper in Israel at an international conference that dealt with adoption. And this was in the 70s. And the Israeli social workers they were just putting a program into effect, and they wanted to copy our procedure here. And we said to them, we're in the process of evaluating our procedure, and we don't recommend you copying it now. So they did copy it. They felt, well, we do everything so well here. So they did. They put into effect field records, entered them and so on. And the Knesset just threw it out. They said, no way. They said, if we cut off a child's roots and connections, historical connections, then we're violating the basic premises of the whole state of Israel, which is based on connections that go from one generation to another. It's part of our whole fabric of our society and our religious belief system. We do it in bar mitzvahs, the father passes it on to the son, and they said, this practice cannot be, so they vaccinated. So they changed it. In Israel, we have open adoption. We're now doing open adoptions in this country. And so they came over and they apologized to us and said, we're sorry we didn't listen to you, but we're going to work our practice now according to what you were recommending, which are the changes that we were talking about. And so this is their practice. And they have very interesting adoption practice. They integrated the various groups that make up Israel from all parts of the world. From Africa, from parts of Eastern Europe now, and so on. And so they've been able to do it. And if the proposals we made that it be open, not to limit and cut off roots, works very well for them. It wouldn't have worked otherwise. So, anyway, in 1975, published a paper in Social Work which said that we should consider a new practice that we have developed theoretically, which is open adoption. And we published a paper called Open Adoption.
What year is it?
1975. And they were very interested. It was very hard to get an article published in Social Work, we discovered. But when they got this article, the editor called and said, this came across his desk, and he said, this is an innovation, and we want to publish it right away. This surprised us no end, so they published it. And that received a lot of attention. We were saying the old system had too many problems with it, created problems for everyone concerned, including the agency. That people were searching, adoptees who were developing problems, everything was just going haywire. And we said, let us at least experiment with open adoption. So we began to do that. In 1984, we published another paper, which said open adoption, published in Child Welfare Society, should be the standard practice. It was called open adoption and standard practice. And now, 1993, it is the standard practice all over the country. Mr. Del Mar, for instance, does only open adoption, as do other agencies. Catholic agencies, for instance, now are doing it. They were the most resistant to it. So there are a few hangovers, but still, just a couple of cases that still want to keep the secrecy. But their problem now is that birth mothers don't want to relinquish to agencies that only practice secrecy. They want to know who the family is, and the family wants to know them. And it's worked out so much better. So it is now the practice, including an independent adoption. And that we feel very good about that some of the studies and research that I was involved in have really taken hold and are now practiced in this country. And I was also very pleased to learn that the closed record was an experiment, that's what I call it, in this country. And that other countries don't practice that. And the major religions in the world do not permit that kind of practice. For instance, the Islamic religion does not permit closed adoption practice. And I didn't realize that until we began to study it. So that was very gratifying to see that this has happened. And I was also very pleased to see it sort of come together for me from things that I had to work again to realize teachers at schools of social work had known for a long time. So it was an interesting coming together because for many years I had been told that, well, you people out there in the agency, you're setting the pace and we're following. Here, understanding that someone like June Brown really held up. He said, this is a family problem. It belongs in the family central agency. It's right. You see her, tell her.
I will. She's a member of the group, and the next meeting she's there.
Yeah, I really would like her to know that. And I said this at conferences. For instance, I did a keynote address at a conference in New York City this year on adoption. And I said that what I'm proposing now is that agencies should be the center for working with pregnancy problem pregnancy issues. And I said that I have finally come around to realize that what I learned from one of the teachers at University, June Brown, was where we need to go. It makes a lot of sense to me. Over the years, I also was very involved with the Child Welfare of America. And I was appointed to the task force on standards for adoption practice. And, they put out booklets, standards in various fields in social work. So I worked on their standards committee for 3 times. I was appointed to that committee. And the last time I served on the standards committee, they adopted the fact that open adoption should be considered as a practice. And they also said that the secrecy and anonymity had to be eliminated, that agencies could be in deep trouble legally if they continued that practice and promised it to clients who came to them. And they incorporated a lot of the reforms that I have been pushing for over the years. So I was pleased to see that sort of come together.
That's great. And you've gotten a lot of satisfaction out of it.
Yes, I have.
Right.
I have.
Made contributions.
I have felt really very rewarded by that. And I've continued it because I kind of wanted to see it consolidate more and go on, and I think it will. The thing that I see now is that our attention really, and our energies and focus should be on the broad view of the child welfare. For example, I think too much attention is focused on infant adoption. Infant adoption is composed maybe 50,000, and of those, half are older children adoption, and a large number of those are family adoption. The number of infant adoptions is something under 20,000. Okay. The number of children who are not living with their families in this country in 1993 is almost 500,000. These children are the ones that we should be focusing on. Our energy should be devoted to finding proper homes for these children. And these are special needs children, they're minority children, they're black children, handicapped children, they're family units, they're older children. And they need better services than we can live in. Foster home services. I learned so much from John. John Milner always, first of all, we always invited him to our foster home meetings because that was his sort of interest. And he always said, he would say to me at these meetings, we have to strengthen the foster home program. We have to make it a real viable program. We have problems that we have to do something about it. I feel over the years, he was right. We gave foster homes a place that's a bad name. It's gotten a bad rap. We have to revitalize that whole system because it's badly needed and it's got to be a system that works. And it can work. And I was very pleased at the conference that I spoke at in New York to meet the director of the child welfare program in New York City and to learn that they were putting into practice exactly what I've been talking about. Because the old system doesn't work here. We have to work with kinship groups. We have to help these children stay within their family unit. It doesn't necessarily have to be their mother or father. But it doesn't have to be a grandmother. It could be an aunt and uncle. He said we even have to reach down to cousins and second cousins to keep them a part of the family. He said the old system wasn't working and they're switching over. Now, in New York City, about over 50% of all their placements are within kinship groups. And he said they're moving towards making that their practice. So, and if it can work in New York, it will work in other metropolitan areas. And it's working in New York. It's doing nicely. The person in charge of our program is Dr. Robert Little. I learned an interesting little thing about Robert Little. First of all, very articulate social worker, a graduate social worker, fine, well-trained person, the right person for that job. He's been the director in Michigan. very impressed. Talking to him. Anyhow, that was last year. I got a notice about a conference taking place here in Los Angeles, sponsored by Black social workers. And they said, Dr. Robert Little will be presenting a paper, and Dr. Robert Little is the brother of Malcolm X. That was a rather pleasant surprise for me to learn. And then I realized, the movie Malcolm X, he's a very important person in the movie. Yeah, it's an interesting movie. You'll recognize him. Because his brother and he's very important in the family. And he relates his experience in his foster home. So we learn in many different ways. Anyhow, that was also a rewarding thing to know that this practice is now working in metropolitan areas and it meets the needs that we now think. So I have good feelings about it, and I think the new administration will be more with it, move in a more positive direction.
So, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you have put in undertake. And it's been a revelation for me. I want to just ask you whether you have any personal papers, pamphlets, any items that can be made available for research.
Yeah, I do. I do. I have to go through the stuff I have, and I would like to do that. In fact, I have to have something. I have President Elwood's father. I have some of the original. I have a bound copy of the book set. The book that was published is only a piece of that. This one would be much more interesting because it shows the methodology, it shows the input from the Bureau of Education Research and the Federation Council. It's a useful thing. I wish I had something like that. I was interested in this subject. Also, I serve on the commission that the state legislature set up to study surrogate parenting, and that became a big issue. And we've got volumes of children. Then, we came up with a report that Crawford said that is probably the best piece of research material available any place in the country. It's a wonderful job. The chairman of the commission is the chairman of the Ethics Commission in Washington, the USC Professor Capon. And it was a wonderful study. So I'd like to give that to the school. And then I have other papers and things I'd be very happy to present to the school. I did present to the school the 3 books that I co-authored that have those. So I'd be very happy to do that.
That's where these things
Johnson, yeah, right. So I'll go through that, and I will. How do I get into school?
If you want to have me do it, I'd be happy to do it. Or if you want to go to the Arlen Johnson Library at the School of Social.
Yeah.
Do you know exactly where the school is?
Yeah, I've been there.
Okay. Well, the library is in that building. And is very much involved in it. I'll call you and give you.
Yeah, okay. I know that somebody has spoken to me about it once before, and I promised it to them, and I never really followed through. And there were some things I was going to get to the library, and the Floyd Library in Del Mar, if they wanted. But I'd be very glad to pull it together and get it to the library.
School of Social Work.
Yeah, right. Good.
That's the one that's called the Arlen Johnson School. It's right in the building
where
the school is.
Right.
It's on the first floor.
Yeah, I think I've been there. No, I haven't.
And this archives group emanates from that. We have kind of relationship with the school social work library. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Well,
We
very
appreciate
well.
your time. I'm interviewing Harry Pannor on behalf of the California Archives Committee. Harry, when did you decide to go into social work? What made you go into field of social work?
When I was in undergraduate work, when I came back from the service,
Uh-huh.
that was in 1940s, latter part of 45. I felt that I wanted to go back to school. I had been going to Cornell before I went to service. When I got discharged from that, I knew I wanted to go into some branch of social studies. I didn't know what exactly. And I just kept looking, groping around, see what I could find. And, I went back to Cornell. I went there for over 1 or 2 semesters, and then I left California. While I was out here, I worked here, and then I went to Berkeley, and then I went down to Santa Barbara. I liked the climate there, so I stayed there. I started school there. And found out that my brother had been going to Columbia, New York, school for work. So I had some inkling of what it might be. So I majored in social science and then looked for a channel. Through social work, I could find what I wanted to do. I was interested then to get into some phase of social work that was working with the union, with Dworak-Peck. That's interesting. I know that they had the social service departments at that time. And I found out to get in there, I would need to get a degree that would certainly help. So that propelled me to go after that. And I did. And applied to UFO school and decided to stay here for the lifetime.
We went to USC.
Yeah. It's on a GI Bill, so I could be
Yeah.
anywhere. Yeah.
I know that. I was under the same,
Well, a lot of
the
us
same
done, huh?
situation.
Right.
Right. So, once you get out, did you look into, were you still interested in doing social work for unions
Yeah.
when you graduated?
Yeah, I was. As a matter of fact, I went up to San Francisco and I took some more classes at the California Labor School. And I worked, I did some work in the longshoremen, and then I worked at the gas company.
Doing social work for the gas company?
No, just working for them. Just working for them. No, for the longshoremen, I do a lot of work. But when I went back to school, things had changed. They started to change in the longshoremen. So I graduated at SC and I went to Brothers, where I had a second replacement. There's been a big shift in the labor movement at that time. I think we're getting close to the McCarthy era.
Yeah.
We were under a lot of pressure.
How did you happen to go fix Jewish Big Brothers?
Because I had a placement job.
Oh, you had had a placement.
Yeah, second year placement.
Uh-huh. Right. Okay. So you knew the agency and decided that's where you went.
Yeah. They recruited me.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, well, you and I have that in common.
Right.
Okay, what happened in Jewish Big Brothers? How did that work out?
Well, it worked out fine because I stayed there for about 32 years. So,
How many?
I think about 32 years.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
32 years in Jewish Big Brothers.
It's a long time.
Yes, it is.
So I finished my placement there and got the job. And I took it. Stayed. I liked it because I stayed there a long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What you find most gratifying?
There?
Personally, yeah.
Well, I think the main thing that kept me there was the fact that I had opportunities there to, innovate and grow and see changes take place. Very dramatic changes when I first into the agency. And when I left, there were progressive changes constantly. It was not stagnant. The agency grew dramatically, added programs, innovated, pioneered a lot of things.
What was your position there, Harry?
Well, I started in those days called caseworker,
Mm-hmm.
and I think my next move was as a student fieldwork supervisor. And then in a couple of years, 2-3 years, I became a supervisor. And then I moved to casework director, and then I ultimately became director of all the clinical services, casework services.
What were some of the changes that took place? And how were you involved in effecting those changes?
Well, when I first came there, you were there then.
Yes. Right. I remember it.
Yeah. They were sort of, we were sort of working on a classical approach. When a social worker would see a kid, and another worker would see the mother, and that was about as far as we went. And it was at that time, I thought it was a fairly active agency. The parent-child guidance program, the Big Brother program, Kent Strauss program, diversity programs also for the community. But they were still in the classical mode. And some of the problems in that were evident. One, we weren't reaching enough people, and the director Gover wanted more people would be served. And that's understandable. It would be funded. I think we were sort of kind of trapped in the analytic model, or affected by it, you could say. We worked on one-on-one. And it's amazing as you look back at it. For example, after the first couple of years, you get to wonder, how come we don't see fathers? I got married since then, and I had a baby. And I went, what the hell is this? Why don't we see fathers? I mean, today it's such a simplistic concept.
Right.
You wonder,
Right.
that have been possible even?
Uh-huh.
You know,
Just substitute for God. The Big Brother.
Big Brother,
Right.
yeah. But even that didn't work because that was in situations where there wasn't a father.
Right.
Right. When the big parent-child guidance program that was developing, because Jewish Family Service was wrapped up with the refugee program, we could displace persons. The parent-child guidance seems to flow into the agency. And then, so, you know, I asked the question, at that time, among other things, Goldberg was receptive in terms of the casework, counseling program, clinical, whatever way you want to look at it. He was receptive to that. He liked the idea. So he said, well, go ahead, let's come up with something. So, you know, we have staff meetings and talk about why, we've got all these reasons why mothers are unfortunate, fathers really weren't involved in the process. It was a mother-child thing. So I said, no, it's not going to fly, so we're going to bring them in. And the main obstacle was at that time, they worked. So how are you going to get them in? You got to have evening hours, right? So we decided we would work one night a week. I mean, that would be the proposal.
Right.
Come in 1:30, stay till 9. And there'd be extra compensation for the work that's put out, plus meal and so forth. So then the issue became, how are you going to get them in here? So we thought about it, I mean, all kinds of reasons and resistance. The mothers don't want them in, and they don't want to come in, and on and on and on. I remember later on, I was doing a workshop, somebody asked that question, how many fathers in? It's like they were from another planet or something. So I said, well, I'll tell you how we do it. We debated it, talked about it for about a month, and then was decided that in the initial application that we sent out, we would state, fathers are expected to come in for the intake interview. And that's how we did it. And they all came in.
That's some even during the day. Probably.
Yeah, right. It was that simple.
Yeah.
All we were doing is bringing them in for the intake interview. Then we decided by seeing them, they were very interested, most of them. And were pleased to be called and considered worthy of involvement. So we started seeing fathers. But again, we still stayed with that old model. The father would be seen separately, the mother would be seen separately, and the kid would be seen separately.
Never the three shall meet.
Yeah, so that the board and administration says, well, what a waste of time. All these people being seen, you know. You got a caseload of maybe 7 families, and that's about what you're doing there. So
it was economics that really...
That was one of the propelling things, economics and bringing in more people. But the other major factor was the beginning of getting away from the one-on-one. Again, to go back to the analytic model, that apparently there was feeling that this is how you resolve problems with people. By looking at it one-on-one with an intracyclic problem. And there was very little conception of intercommunication between people. You know, when you think about it now, we're talking about people having insecurity and how people feel about themselves. The only way to get an answer is when they reflect it off somebody else. If somebody likes them, then they feel better about themselves. So, you know, it's the communication. Now it's a big deal. In addition to that, we weren't reinventing the wheel. My first placement, I was at the Belvedere, the BPSS, and when we would go down to do the confirmation, whether the father, whoever was out of the home so that they could get their money, we would interview the whole family. And CSWA has been doing that for years. So, being together. They're both concerned about the kids. We discovered right away. Mothers say one thing, fathers say another thing, and if we wanted to have it together, it seems so. You look back now, it's so simplistic.
Yeah, right.
So we started.
But that was a struggle.
Yep, it was a struggle. And I remember I thought of the idea of calling the conjoint interview. I remember I gave a lecture at SC about it, and when I got through, he was George Green or something. You make a strong case for that. I look back now, I think it's right. How primitive some of that stuff seemed to be. So
Rose was still not in for that.
Well, nobody was into it. They were still sticking to the old model.
One-on-one.
Right. So we saw the parents together, and that stayed. Stayed that way. Then the next step from that, which was about 10 years, I guess, into it already, 8 or 10 years, something like that. Kept noticing that the mothers, when the parents would come in, they'd bring the kids with them because they didn't have babysitters. And the kid would sit in the waiting room. You know how that place is set up.
Yeah.
So they'd go down the halls and sit at the doors to listen to what's going on here. So from that, I started inviting them in. Why don't you come in and sit there?
Parents didn't object.
No, parents didn't object. They left it up to us. It was okay with us. And from that, already there had been some movement of that. Virginia Secure was doing something. Some other people here were doing things. We decided to bring children in. And we did it first selectively. We would bring them in at the intake interview to see how they interacted. And then we always started with parents first. So parents first, and then had them prepare the kids to bring them in wide, and so on. And that would give us an assessment, and then we still continue seeing individually, but the same workers saw everybody. That in itself was an innovation. So when you saw all the members of the family, you were like connected to it.
And all the interaction.
Right. Yeah.
Good view.
Yeah. Right.
What are the ages of the children that you saw?
From 5 to 2 adolescents. 2 adolescents. So we saw them when they were, we call a family interview when they were in crisis. We call a family interview you're getting close to ending. And we soon, from that, moved to doing family interviews. Seeing everybody. Yeah. And then we started with the demonstrations, the teaching, writing about it. The psychiatrists come in and wanted to learn how to do this. And they took credit for innovating it. But then they took credit for innovating it.
Yeah.
Same thing happened in New York. Tucson is very big ethic. Were you there when the psychiatrists were?
No.
Kept over in Tucson and Foster, Dr. Gina Paul,
The one psychiatrist who was involved in that.
They
He was a consultant.
Yeah, well, that's what they said, but actually what they come in is the demonstration. They would find a family. We'd have to prepare a family, and then they would interview them from staff, and then we would talk about it. That's pretty easy, like from time to watch it.
Do you have one of yours, or?
No.
So that they knew you were there.
Yeah.
You liked it.
Yeah.
You participate?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, yeah. When we started doing it ourselves, actually, before they came in. And that also was a big step, because, you know, traditionally, what the worker did, whether it was a worker or a psychiatrist in our agency or a worker, it was sacred. Nobody knew what they did, except what was written on paper. In these long interviews, by the way, we get away with also. I had to, of course, again, the administration wanted to, why we were putting all this energy in, what was useful to it, what was the purpose, and trying to figure it out. You get wells for supervision, for this and that. No, I don't buy into any of that, but the record really belongs to the client. What are we storing information about them for?
So you no longer dictated.
So you remember we used to have a dictating room?
Oh, I
12
remember
people
that
sat
very
there all
well.
day long dictating?
Yes, I remember.
In 1 week we eliminated the whole thing. We decided, what do we need for administration? What do we need in record files? And what do we need for supervision? What is the worker? So we decided there was very little we needed for administration. And for supervision, the idea of reading long volumes of records, I said, you said, he said, it was useless, really. So then we said for the worker, you keep your own notes. You can leave it. And when you get through the case, throw them away what you want from somebody. And that's it. And then all we would have is a summary. Case closed, closing summary. Brief closing summary. And then you know what we did? We put them on tapes and didn't bother to transcribe them until we needed them.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. So they stayed there, very rarely. Somebody would come in and the case would be reopened, transcribe it.
That saved a lot of clerk.
Yeah. And it was useful. It freed workers to spend more time with people. They also changed the whole concept of supervision. You don't have to go over, I said, you said, work with people. I don't really mean that, but they, it was not a good way to supervise. Maybe a good way to publish. Even then I wanted to question that. So supervision then became more verbal. Form of supervision that also included consultation. It shocked me. It freed the workers. Just you themselves. The other thing in the family interview, there was always also tremendous resistance because, as I was saying before, no one ever knew what somebody did with a kid. It was always reported on he said, I said. So the idea of exposing that was very threatening. Nobody wanted to expose it to the supervisor or to the rest of the staff. So they gave all kinds of reasons. The mothers wouldn't like it. No, kids would be threatened. To their relationship and so on. We're going to do it, so I did it. It demonstrated a concept in parent-child guidance, work therapy, that I think was new and that is it's not important what we do with the kids. What's important is what the parents do with the kids. And, we can look good. I used to say, of course a kid's going to like coming in and see me. Well, I'm going to do anything. I'm going to let him play or say whatever he likes. I'm not going to reprimand him. I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to be supportive. I'm going to understand everything he does. If he hits his brother on the head, I'm going to say, well, you must have been angry at him. So why shouldn't he come back? He'd come back.
It didn't change it.
Didn't change anything, because having a good relationship with me is going to help him along, because he sees me once a week. And with the parents. So the shift began to move toward the parents and away from the kids. Instead of the treatment. And that has to be done very carefully so the parents can feel like that. They were being blamed and they were being held responsible. That has to be dealt with, and people weren't used to that. As soon as they walk in there, they're at fault. As soon as you say hello, you're blaming them. But what are you calling them in for? We have to work out how to help them understand that they're the best change agents. And that's what's binding and lasting. Keeps the parenting in their control. I thought that was a major shift. I still practice that. I rarely see kids like that. I would work with the parents. It's maybe later, adolescent kids. I might concentrate more on working with them. But even there, lots of joint discussions with the parents. It's really a major thing. Again, you look back, it's amazing. This stuff kept on for so many years. They undermined parents for years. And it's almost like poor treatment by concentrating on the kid alone. It's primary emphasis. A lot of that still goes on. It's food. You have to have rare exceptions. Just the kids really need special guidance and maybe educational work. With physical therapists, tutoring, etc. And some clarification. But I believe that if anybody's going to be treating a kid, it should be the parents. We want to like the word treatment. Parenting.
How long did the average case go on?
Well, it depended on, whether it was in your department, wherever. And the beauty of that was that if the kid had a big brother, it could go on as long as the big brother was in the picture. So that doesn't mean the kid was in treatment all that time. But he was there, and he and the parent and big brother were there for checkups. You have physical checkups. I think we began what would be emotional checkups. Because we would have it built into the agency. There are no agency in the country that could do this unless they had their big brother agencies, but they didn't have counseling units attached to them. So that combination made it possible to do periodic checkups, to see how the kid's growing, what's happening there. You pick up things, so that in that situation, the family could go on as long as his big brother was made up a pretty sizable part of the population. In other situations, we function pretty much like a parent-child clinic, close to the child guidance clinic. In some cases, I didn't like the word cases either. Situations. Yeah, situations, family. I didn't like the word problem. Would be short. some would be longer. We never turned down, unless it was really, I can't even think of any situation that we turned down traditionally. So we would have follow-ups with each other, and then we could come in maybe 3 months, or could come in every 3 months, after being seen maybe a year, 6 months, 2 years. But, you know, at one time in the agency, we had long waiting lists. We used to have an intake department. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Intake workers. Right. Lawrence Anderson was one of the people who were the intake workers were the elite. Yeah. You know, the best. You know, and what they did is screwed up the whole program. Because when they got through working with the intake, they would then be handed over to the lowly social workers. And, you know, that transition would lose about 1/3 of the clients. Because they would, in the intake, they would really, you know, when you see people for the first time, you see it for workups for 4, 5, 6 times, they would connect. You don't transfer them. Right. And what makes them more skilled than their workers? You know what? I eliminated that. Everybody did their own intake. That was an innovation. Yeah. All agencies had intake departments. It was, you know, now you look back at it, what a caste system was created in the agency. So that we had long waiting lists. I remember the intake workers would have 70, 80, 120 cases waiting. So I decided this is not the way to do it. So we got to do something to help these people. So assign 4 people, and every time something happened in the agency like that, I did it. Decided that we would call the people who were on the waiting list and offer them a series of 6 sessions to sustain them when we called on the waiting list. So what are we going to do with it? So we worked out a program whereby, number one ingredient was this was to be a very active kind of interaction. We would listen to what it is, do a session, and then tell them what to do. It rubs everybody the wrong way. Meaning we would give them things to work on. So we said, so try this, and we'll talk about the next session. And then try this, and work on this. In agreement with them, what needed to be done. Then we would call them when we had openings. You know what we found out? That 2/3 of those on that waiting list didn't need any help after that.
All they needed was the initial.
And the 4 to 6 sessions that we did. Yeah. So out of that came bleed therapy, short-term treatment. These things were starting to happen, you know, but very few places were implementing, you know, doing it. Some were, and it worked out. It worked out very well. So what we wound up with was when we called people who came in, they were hardcore cases. Another issue, you know. But it did begin to innovate, being more active rather than passive listeners. And way back. So that's one of the things that kept me there, that we kept moving.
It's great that you have that kind of feeling about a job.
Right.
Position.
Oh yeah, I don't think I would have stayed.
Continue to be stimulated.
I know I wouldn't have.
Well, I've learned some things about the agency I didn't know. I mean, I never knew these details. You know, I lost track of the agency a long time ago. In 1953, I was no longer there. And then I did come back, and I was working on a doctorate.
That's right.
For camp. Right.
we also, encourage people to write up what they did. And we submitted it. And we had stuff published in papers. We must have done hundreds of workshops over the years. So that was, I thought, significant. Make contributions to the community and the field.
Well, here's a question I have to ask you, Harry.
Yes.
What social movements or activities were you involved with that seemed to you important but did not meet the goals you wanted to attain?
They were important but didn't lead to the goals?
The goals that you wanted to attain. In other words, what kind of movements or activities did you get involved with on your job or in the field generally that you put a lot of effort into but you didn't reach the goals you wanted to attain? Are there any such things in your life,
Well,
your career?
I could pin it down to movements, but, we also had within the agency a big program of the juvenile court. It was a large program. And I thought that we were on track with, back then, we were on track with making a dent in the juvenile delinquency problem. And I think we were. You remember that?
Oh, I remember that very well.
At that time, they didn't have the advocacy program, the family court kind of system, where we would go into court and we'd be told if we were picked up, and we'd interview everybody involved, including the schools, and work up a program, come back and present a plan, which basically would be to have to put on probation and commit for treatment. If we would reach down to his brother, whatever was appropriate for him. But it was an intensive kind of program. I felt that over the years that we were into that, it was successful. It was successful.
What made the agency stop?
That the emphasis shifted from being a family to an adversary court. Then the kids all had attorneys, and it became a court system. From that point on, we really were not in a position to have a role because the kid was considered to be innocent for himself. He was proven guilty. So how could we go in there and interview him? As soon as we got into the act, we were saying, well, he's guilty.
Yeah.
So it destroyed the whole system. And it was effective. There was no question about it. I think if that system had been maintained, it would have made a difference in the problems we have today. Way all off the map.
Some of those boys went to camp.
Yep. And a lot of them had big brothers. I know we would do periodic workups to see how are they doing, where are they going, what happens to them. The success rate was phenomenal. They'd have 10%, we'd have 70%. We tried to transmit that to other groups, other programs, and those were the men they'd have to bring in counseling components too. And some of them did. And they were also successful. I remember they used to give presentations at conferences where we would figure out it cost $15,000, $20,000 a year to keep a kid in detention. For $600 a year, you can have big brother. And it worked. Why wouldn't it work?
Yeah.
they dabble around with it now, today. But nobody's really doing it effectively when you think about it. Somebody goes down there and does a thing, shows or something, and then disappears. You know? So it's not as if they don't know what to do. It's just not being done. Anyhow, that is fall in place.
Anything else you think of? What did you learn from that? Do you have any thoughts about how that might be reinstituted?
Yeah, I think the money that is spent, millions, billions of dollars, if it can be redirected. I know that we have ongoing programs, but the transition maybe put that into programs where you do have a lot of one-on-one. There's no substitute for it. No substitute for it whatsoever. You have to have one-on-one. Yeah, and that takes more time, takes more money. But, I think that's the only way to do it. Also, I think one of the things that what I mentioned before is there ought to be programs available for people all the time, like checkups. We have a national health program in this country that will include this kind of checkup and work with as a preventive program. It has it for the younger kids. Pre-university school. But they ought to be ongoing. I hope that does happen. Major part of it.
Were there any things that the district government instituted and have been taken on by other agencies and organizations? Anything that you can think of that really had an impact on the field?
Yeah, well, some of the things I mentioned, the use of volunteers effectively in a structured with good support system. That wherever that's been duplicated at work, continuity, I think that's a major contribution. The CAP program also is a major contribution. The integrators eventually got it to Cohen.
I remember that one of my jobs when I started working with the agency as the director of volunteer good brother program was to serve as a consultant in camp, to bring to the council any information that might be helpful in dealing with a youngster who is in a difficulty on the trip. And I think that was a very innovative thing, and it was.
Carry on.
Okay. Yes, it was, and we did that. We would sign a worker to every session. We stayed out there.
And that continued on.
Yep. That continued on. That was an innovation. Once you can afford it, do that. And innovating in dictation. Getting money down. shifted the emphasis to family rather than individual, although within the framework of working with family, you also work with individuals. That is eliminated. I think what we demonstrated was that because we offered service, which we demonstrated that preventive work could be done effectively through agencies. That did become part of what they did. Prior to that, we only worked with people who were sick, with problems. Therefore, we didn't know much about people who functioned well. It's tough to work with people who don't, because you have to distinguish who does it.
Right.
It's a fine line. It's a fine line. So that, we demonstrated that the kind of service that we rendered is applicable to everybody. Everybody. And what it did is it took the stigma away from people seeking some help. And we would emphasize that over and over again.
Very important, I
For example, it seems like a camp. They were going to a camp and say, okay, what do you hope to accomplish? We interviewed every parent. Both camps. What would you like to see happen? They say, we want to learn this, we've got problems with this, but maybe this will help you. So good. So we're going to keep our eye on that. Would you like to hear what happens? See when it's so over. At the end of camp.
Oh, sure.
Everybody come in and get an interview, a follow-up interview. How did this work out? This worked out fine. This did well. But in this area, you could use a little more help. And we have a program to help you.
Great.
So what it meant is that you just have to come to an agency. Kids was on a baby. Killing everybody in the household.
You're just looking for a 2-week experience.
You could come in, right. With problems of living. And that was fine.
Okay, Harry, do you have any material in your possession that you would want to turn over to the archives committee? Any articles you've written? Whatever.
I probably do, because I got stored away a bunch of I could go through them.
Well, you can,
Yeah, I can
find
get
some
some.
time that you look through. Very anxious to get things.
Okay. But some of the stuff is, if you look it up, you'll find it. But I probably got copies. What do you want me to do? What do you get it to you? Or?
Yeah. I'd be happy to get that. Were you ever interviewed, by the way?
No.
By anyone in this way? No. Okay, anything else you want to add to this? Go down in posterity. Although you may feel that we're wasting time doing all this interview. And having a secretary report it, file it away.
What people use it for? Working on doctors, or just looking up stuff? Or?
I'm not sure. I really don't know. But
I hope it's used.
The Archives Committee feels that,
I hope it will bolster the end of the social work. But I think that's one of the things that's eroding. We got to sort out where we belong in all of this.
And people still feel that when you say I was a social worker, I am a social worker. Oh, you work for the county. Well, hard work with the county, that type of thing. That's the concept of this stuff.
Well, listen, after all these years, something's wrong with the application. Person asking that. You know, I mean, we were in a fire attack today. I don't hear much being said about it. As if the wind was to blow over or something. We survive and then we carry on or something like that. There's no damage control unit coming in there.
Harry, I thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.